Welcome back to Advanced Forging, the show where we use all of the advanced options for Urza's AI to make more curated cards with specific intents. Now, I should mention that the JSON file can actually be updated with all the fields of a card and just spit out a fully complete card with anything that you want. So you could actually use it for, like, custom designs if you really wanted to, instead of something like, Cardsmith or something like that. All the AI does is it will fill in fields that don't already exist, fields that you haven't filled in already. But the more we fill in, the more of a curated sort of text that we will end up with, and that is really what we're looking for. With this, we are going to make the Commander exclusive sort of companion cards that go with sets these days for our Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad set from October. And all of these cards are based on flavor text or other things. I think it's all flavor text, but maybe there are some other things that made their way in there. That are cards that just, like, are mentioned to existing characters that we know exist in the lore, the, randomly generated AI lore, that should exist in the world but don't exist on any cards because the AI doesn't look at its own lore to make new cards or anything, right? So we're going to take those pieces and we're going to see if we can make some legendary creatures. Now, I based the original design of this JSON off of the mana costs from Innistrad Midnight Hunt and Innistrad Crimson Vow, just to get a sort of design space so that I felt like I was not just, making random shots in the dark. But these do stray away. These are not exact mana costs from those sets. And again, that is to say, the Commander companion set, and specifically the unique non-reprint legendaries from that set. Or those two sets, I should say. That is where our starting point was, and I have filled out the rest of the card from there. What we are supplying is mana cost, the types, which is legendary creature. One of them is a Planeswalker, but only one. The subtypes of whatever I thought it should be. And this is the part where it got very sort of, editorialized, right? We are basing these off of the names mentioned in the flavor text of cards. But who that person is, I wish I could just let the AI decide who that person is, but I kind of can't because there is a specified order to the JSON file, and if you say, no, I want you to come up with the subtypes on your own, but you do want to specify the name, it will consider the subtypes field to be blank instead of generating it itself. That's just the way that it works. So here, we want to get the name in there, and therefore we have to put in the mana cost and the subtypes, which is okay. I think we came up with some decent ideas. We'll go over them as we go. Just want to make sure that everyone's clear that the AI is not coming up with the subtypes. Those were, like, a user input. Otherwise, we have the name, and then all of these, of course, still have the deck name, Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad, just to keep us on flavor. With that all said, I need to get better at intros. Let's get started with our first card. Odara, Cloud of Shadows Librarian for a single blue. Now this one, the reason it's a single blue is because Odara, Cloud of Shadows Librarian is such a long name that I was just like, nope, it has to just be blue. We can't, there's nothing else will fit. So legitimately that's why it's like that. Odara, Cloud of Shadows Librarian is a Goblin Witch legendary creature. They're a 1/1 for 1 with, looks like flying and blue draw card. That is incredibly powerful. And would probably be a pretty strong card if that is something that we wanted to, like, entertain. That said, I don't think I want to be too strict about the fact that it's cut off. I think that that's maybe a little bit too harsh of me to be like, oh, it's cut off, it can't possibly be good enough. But I don't know. That is quite. Just blue to draw a card is way too powerful. These are allowed to be powerful. They're cool cards. They're supposed to be these like Commander exclusive weird things, but I think even in Commander that's gonna be a bit much. What's the flavor text say though? From within its seething, ethereal cauldron, a dark cloud issues forth, a few dregs of wisdom and a hint of fear. It flicks the light-tipped ends of the wisps of filigree that flutter to the ground and hovers them before your eyes. From The Most Fearless and Mysterious Peasants of All, by Delphanus Hortala. Well, now I want to know who Delphanus Hortala is! What? No! That's cool. That is the kind of character, though, like looking at the flavor text, I don't think I can imagine a Magic card with that flavor text, and Delphanus Hortala just does not get a card, right? Like, that's the style of, like, oh, this is some author in the fiction. They're not a warrior. Why would they have their own card, right? So I think that actually functions pretty well, and doesn't feel that weird to have this, like, another thing, but very, very cool. So I have to decide, do I want to one and done these, or do I want to get a couple takes on these characters? This one's just so solid. I think I'm going to leave it for now, and we might come back, because I've actually... This JSON is the same, like, 10 cards, like, multiple times, so we might end up hitting Adara again, depending on how much time we have. Let's do it that way. I think that'll work best. We'll leave them for now. There we go. Sayla Death Witch. For black and a green is a 1/2 Goblin Witch. Another Goblin Witch. They have flying as well. Okay, I like that the witches have flying. There's an implication there. Colorless and green. Target creature you control fights another target creature you don't control. Each deals damage equal to its power to the other. Cool. That's very strong. Some aboleths turned away from life. They sit atop Mount Abora, claws outstretched, and weave tales of the warp that keep others awake at night. Whoa, there's so much going on there that's, like, not in the set at all. That's so interesting. Tales of the Warp. Nice. Oh, I'm into that. I think that's real fun. Save you. So I'm going to manually save these in case I do end up re-rolling these, but what's nice about the JSON, like the deck builder style of foraging, is I don't need to save them as I go. I can just save them all at the end. It's excellent. Huln Necropolis Seer. I figured it would be a spirit wizard. They are a colorless, not colorless, for one generic blue and black, they are a 1/2 spirit wizard. Whenever you gain life, draw a card. Okay. Wording wise, would that be 1 per point? Or is it like per instance of gaining life? I think it's supposed to say like whenever you gain 1 or more life. So I think it means per point, right? I'm not actually sure. Yeah, that's unclear to me. How that's supposed to be interpreted. In a cemetery in Innistrad, rumors of a new necromancer bring forth another threat to the region. I'm into it. This spirit wizard is a necromancer threatening Innistrad. That's some good flavor there. I'm certainly into it. I don't know whether or not this I don't know whether or not this card functions. If it does function, I'd have to ask a judge like what the correct ruling is, if it's per instance of life gain or if it's per point of life gained. Either way, cool card. One way is more broken than the other, obviously, but I don't think it's like actually necessarily broken. It's cool. It's cool. Needs other cards to activate itself, so it's not necessarily the worst. Kiarna Sali. Ah, Kiarna Sali. I'm just very excited for them. They're our insect druid in a pumpkin helmet mask. 2 green white is a 5/5 insect druid. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a swamp and a non-basic land, interesting, you may cast a spell with the greatest power among creatures you control. Okay, so this card doesn't function, unfortunately. The idea of saying you may cast a spell with mana value equal to the greatest power among creatures you control without paying its mana cost is a really cool idea for an effect. If that already exists, cool. But if it doesn't exist, yeah, that's a cool idea. Unfortunately, that's not what this says. It just says you may cast a spell with the greatest power among creatures you control. That doesn't mean anything. Also, though, since these are intended to be like potential commanders that you could use in a commander game, saying if you control a swamp and a non-basic land is not great in a green-white deck. Now, I think you're allowed to play, like, in Commander, nothing says you can't play swamps, I think, in, like, a non-black deck. I assume. Maybe I'm wrong. I assume nothing says you can't do that, so it's not impossible to use, it's just, like, very weird. So probably we're going to roll this one again, but let's read this flavor text. Bind to my spirit, sweet God, but even with the greatest hold, you cannot kill the child you bore. Kiarna Sali, gather the pack. Huh. This is like a song that Kiarna Sali signs. I'm going to have to check the actual card that inspired this, but if my memory is correct, it also had flavor text in this style of, like, slashes, implying, like, different lines of a song or a poem. Huh. I might be thinking of a different card, but, yeah. Well, interesting, but we need a second chance. Kiarna Sali, 2 green, white, 3/3 insect druid. When Kiarna Sali, Stormcrow, okay, I didn't give them a subtitle, but sure, enters the battlefield, you may exile another target non-land permanent. Okay. Whenever a creature you control with flying dies, if you control another non-land permanent with flying, Kiarna Sali deals 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. There's too much going on here. How does this work? When it enters the battlefield, if we assume that Kiarna Sali Stormcrow is a legal name, you may exile target non-land permanent, can't be itself. Got it. Whenever a creature you control that has flying dies, if you control another non-land permanent with flying. I'm not sure if in this case another means not Kiarna Sali or if another means not the one that just died, but I don't know. Then it deals 2 damage to target player. That's overly complicated. She's half a Thunderbird and half a Screeching Gargoyle. I don't think that's true. I think that's incorrect. Kiarna Sali, 2 green, white, is a 3/4 insect druid. They have green. Target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn. That's so strong. Holy crap, that's so strong. From my side, I control all the wealth. From the other side, the decay. That's appropriate. I like this depiction of Kiarna Sali. Kiaran Sali. Kiaran Sali. Kiaran Sali. I like it. I think that one works. Nasa, Peddler of Bones. For 2, white and black is a 3/2 goblin rogue. Cool. I'm saying cool about the thing that I wrote, but still, I'm into goblin rogue. Let's go. When Nasa, Peddler of Bones, enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Okay, so it's a 4-mana 3/2 that allows you to discard a card from your opponent's hand on ETB. I don't know if that's good enough. Huh. What have you got there? That's great flavor text, actually. The Peddler of Bones is actually going to steal things from you. That's... I understand. Oh, I forgot to save that. Let me just quickly grab that. There we go. Yorick, Wizard of Amica. Amica, 2 blue and red, is a 3/3 human wizard. When Yorick, Wizard of Amica, enters the battlefield, target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Okay, cool. For generic blue-red, Yorick, Wizard of Amica, deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of creatures you control. Dang. Yorick seems pretty good, actually. Odd fellows think I am foolish. I assure you, my role is quite the opposite. I like Yorick. Yorick seems cool. I'm into that. I think that's excellent. Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pub. So this one I was thinking of making 2 colors, but I needed... It was another name space restraint constraint thing where I was like, you know what? Nope. You're gonna be 3 in black, so I can make it fit. Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pub is a spider witch. So this is actually a really interesting one. The card this one is coming from mentions like spider folk, and it's the only card in the set that mentions spider folk, and there are no spider folk in the set. So I really am excited to see what Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pub is. So a 4-mana 2/3. Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pub can't be blocked. Okay. And they have tap, target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn. Oh, cool. Okay. So they can't be blocked, but they could also, instead of attacking, give someone else the ability to not be blocked. If it didn't have that power 3 or less restraint, though, that would be very, very cool. Because right now it's like, okay, 4 mana for a 2/3 that's unblockable. Is that good? I'd have to ask Scryfall. I'm not sure if that's good or not. But the idea of being able to like move it onto something with more power is a really cool idea. Like this evasive thing that can then make something else invasive instead. But it also has to be power 3 or less, so yeah. A true-blooded hag loves a good bit of dark ale. I do think they look cool. Mayavi Dusk Priest. 3 black green. They're a 2/4 elf shaman. Other shaman creatures you control get +1/+1. Cool. There are certainly other shamans in the set. Also tap to add black and green. I like this card. This is a very cool design. Oh yeah, so it's 5 mana for tap, make 2 mana. Which I don't think is great, but it's like, that's fine. But they have this aura. They have, not aura. I can't use the word aura because aura means something in Magic. But they have this like passive effect, this lord effect, that you don't care about attacking with. You're happy tapping to make mana, and you're still getting a benefit of having them on the battlefield. That's really cool. I like that a lot. It just feels appropriate for this like shaman character. I do want to mention the whole like, they're a dusk priest, and I went through Scryfall to see like, priests don't have to be clerics, right? And the answer is they don't, right? There's a warlock that's a priest. There's a druid that's a priest. There's a shaman that's a priest. A lot of non-cleric priests. So there's precedent if you think it looks weird to have a shaman that's a priest. Rise before dawn. Carry your stone in your heart. I have waited for you all my life. I try to be pretty even with my color balancing. There are certainly some colors that get more representation than other, but they're all in here, at least somewhere, so I'm happy about that. Cythria Goblin Smith is a for 3 red and white is a 2/2 Goblin Artificer. Ooh, that is a steep price to pay. What do they have? For 1 and a red, tap, put a +1/+1 counter on target goblin. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I love that, actually. I mean, it's maybe a little expensive and maybe a little slow, especially with a 5-mana overhead to get the card online. But, like, they're a Goblin Smith. They could make you great gear, but, like, kind of only for goblins. I actually really like that. They also have, for 2 and white and tap, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token named Mind Rust with whenever this creature becomes blocked, you gain 1 life. Weird. Whoa. Cythria Goblin Smith, you're cool. Oh, I like her. I don't know exactly what's happening in your art, but that's okay. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. He makes weapons for his patrons. For hire. My mistake. Cool. Oh, I'm into Cythria. Sigiled Burr, Forest Champion, is a 5-mana, that's 3 generic green and white, for a 4/3 Treefolk Warrior. They have haste, and creatures you control have trample, which of course would include Sigiled Burr. Oh, cool. Oh, I'm into you. Yeah. For 3 green and white, so the same cost as actually playing them, you can create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token with trample. I like that it keeps trample even if Sigiled Burr dies. That's fun. It just actually has trample. A sigil carved by an angry god upon the branch of an overgrown tree. So Sigiled Burr, Forest Champion, is like a tree that's been, like, given... It's like an awakened tree, right? Like, there's a magic sigil carved into the branch of an overgrown tree by an angry god. Oh, that's rad. Oh, that's so cool. There's not a ton of tree folks in the set, but there's, like, enough that I felt like it was relevant to make them. Oh, that's cool. I don't think there's normally tree folks in... Are there someone's gotta answer me in the comments, please. Are there actually tree folk in Innistrad normally? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad that isn't normally in Innistrad, so like that's fine if they don't. But I do love the idea that like tree folk are not normally part of Innistrad, but one was created by this angry god by awakening Sigiled Burr. That would be cool. I'm into that lore, whether or not that's true. It's cool either way. Wicked Jahark, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Giant Rampager. I needed there to be at least one giant. I love the giants in this set. For 3 black and red, you get a 5/4 giant warrior with flying. Oh, wow. Whenever Wicked Jahark Giant Rampager attacks, defending player may pay 3 generic. If they do, you create a 5/5 black zombie giant warrior creature token with trample and haste. So a few things. They're just gonna not pay. You know what? Okay, so hear me out. These are our Commander exclusive cards. I mean, maybe. Maybe somebody would pay that. No, it's never gonna happen. That's ridiculous. Wicked Jahark's bark makes the weak quake in their step, and his breath can freeze a world. I like Wicked Jahark. I think we've got a reasonably cool card for who they're supposed to be. They're really just a flyer. They're just a 5/4 flyer though, aren't they? Which is like good. Like I'm okay with that, but you know, get any dragon and they're better, basically. Defending player may pay 3. If they do, you create a 5/5 black zombie giant warrior. With trample and haste. That's so cool. There's no way to make that work. Like, they're just never gonna pay 3. Can you force them? Like, is there any way to activate this? If anybody has a way of activating this ability, like, and that's the fun of Commander, right? It's sort of building around your Commander. Like, this isn't very good, but in this specific situation, I can make it work. Like, I like it. I think that's cool, but it's never gonna happen. But it's cool, but it's never gonna happen. You know, like Mindslaver someone. I don't think that works. That has to be on their turn. Oh well. Threnody, Queen of Winter, is an X green treefolk avatar. Right, I remember. I looked up if avatars were only avatars or if they could have like another creature type in there. And there's precedent for it, so I was like, let's make a little cycle of avatars. There's not a ton of them. There's, I think, maybe only 2 or 3, but yeah, Threnody Queen of Winter felt like it could have also been like a god, but nah. Treefolk Avatar. X green. They're a 3/3. They partner with Elspeth Tien. That's so weird. Because Elspeth's in the set. Elspeth is actually on a one card's flavor text. And she's in the list. Like, I don't think she's next, but like she's in the list. Now, that said, her name is not Elspeth Tien. Elspeth Tien, I think, is a different card? Wait, is Elspeth's last name even Tien? I don't know who Elspeth Tien is. I think that's Elspeth. Anyway. Partner with Elspeth Tien. Each other's power is augmented, which means whenever this creature attacks, each other creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. What? I like it when the AI comes up with its own, like, reminder text. This didn't mean anything to me. I didn't understand this at all. Her flute can be heard in every stale hall, but no one answers. That's cool flavor text. I'm into Threnody, Queen of Winter. I'm not into this card because we gotta use that X. Not only did the text just not make any sense to me, I did not follow the partner with Elspeth Tien, each other's power is augmented. But it also didn't use the X, and that's a shame. We want to see that X. Threnody, Queen of Winter, X green is a 7/6 Treefolk avatar. So you just for green, for 2 mana you get a 7/6. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. Okay. I mean, if this was just a 2 mana 7/6 that bounces one of your own creatures every turn, I could see that being something that's printable. It's still not using the X, unfortunately. I hope we don't, like, just spin our wheels waiting for that X to show up and it never does, but... Once my sweet home, now nothing but a sad, lifeless wasteland. Threnody, Queen of Winter. Cool. Let's give it another shot, see if we can get that X to be useful. I liked that card, though. That was kind of cool. I was like, oh, what? A 2 mana 7/6, and then it had a downside, and I was like, oh... Yeah, it's still very strong, but if it's the only thing on the field, you have to bounce itself. I think. Did it say other, or did it say... Yeah, return a creature. Yeah, not another creature. Threnody, Queen of Winter, X green for a 5/6 Treefolk avatar. Okay, so again, very strong. When Threnody, Queen of Winter enters the battlefield, return up to X target non-land permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is its mana value. What? What's it? Is it Threnody? What? Is this just kicker for 2 generic? Is that what this is? Up to 2 target non-land permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where 2 is its mana value. Or is it the cards that are being returned? So, okay, this is... I think this needs a reroll because I don't understand it. I'm going to have to ask a good judge. But here's my interpretation of this, which may or may not be correct. Threnody, Queen of Winter can be cast for 2 green plus whatever X you want. If you just spend 2 green, you get a 5/6, which is very strong. But hey, they're a Treefolk avatar. Maybe that's okay. If you spend 1, you can find 1 card. That card must have mana value of 1, exactly to equal to exactly 1. Now, I'm explaining this and I'm realizing that this is false, fundamentally, I think, because I don't know. No, maybe that's not wrong. So, if the text of a card says what X is, you must have X must equal that, right? If it does not say what X is, then you get to define it when you cast the spell, right? So when you cast the spell, the body text says X is its mana value. And we don't know what it is in this situation, so we ignore that line and we get to name whatever we want. Let's say 5. X is 5. Then we go in and we say return up to 5 target non-land permanent you control to the battlefield where 5 is its mana value. The short answer is this probably just doesn't function. I should stop trying to like figure it out because it's a puzzle with no solution. The king called to his knights to save the winter court. All those who survived rode with her to join her in her quest. Cool. I'm into the like idea of like Treefolk Queen of Winter. Like Threnody Queen of Winter sounds like I think they're implying here, right? The Winter Court, like this very like unseelie fae situation. But the idea of just like yeah, no, but I'm a Treefolk because it's like a tree standing in winter. I'm into it. Oh well, come on, Threnody. I know you can do it. Okay. Threnody, Queen of Winter. X green green for a 3/3 Treefolk avatar. Okay, that makes sense. So just green green for a 3/3. That's fine. But if you pay X, when Threnody, Queen of Winter enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, which doesn't really need to be there because it's going to become a 0 if you didn't cast it from hand, right? But let's ignore that. Creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of snowlands you control. Okay, never mind. So, I think that actually is relevant. I think if you bounced this, even though you're paying 0 for X, X is defined by the body text, so X would still count, and therefore, it is appropriate that it says that. It's not just the AI being redundant. So that's cool. On the other hand, I do like the idea that this card goes off, like, keys off of Snowlands. It doesn't really make sense in the set because the set doesn't have Snowlands. But again, these are the, like, commander bonus cards. So, yeah, sure, why not, right? People use Snowlands in Commander. You're going to be mixing and matching this with other cards anyway. Can you imagine if they printed a, like, you know, Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad comes out and one of the precons is Threnody, Queen of Winter, and it has Snowlands? It has, like, Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad themed snowlands, and that's the only way to get them. That's actually pretty cool, and I would not put it past Wizards of doing something like that. I'm kind of into it. So, when you play Threnody Queen of Winter, you must pay X equal to the number of snowlands you control. Which means that you need to... Okay, so this is funny. This is this thing that I got this wrong in the last video where I was talking about there's an X card that cares about how many swamps you control, and in my brain, because there was mana outside of that, it didn't work, but like, you're paying X is generic mana, so you can, it's perfectly fine to mix and match, like, with your non-swamp produced mana. In this situation, you either are spending all of your mana produced by snowlands plus 2 mana produced by non-snowlands, which is either mana rocks, because again, you're in Commander, that happens, or lands that just aren't snowlands, because you have, like, I don't know, you wouldn't have, like, Triomes if you were playing green, unless this is in the 99, which, honestly, this would probably go in the 99, so that's fair, but still. You'd have to find a way around that. You could play, like, a weird mix of snowlands and non-snowlands. Okay, I guess a better question is, if they made a pre-con with Threnody Queen of Winter piloting, commanding it in the command zone, would it come with a mix of snowlands and non-snowlands? Because I think that's actually the way you do this. You wouldn't go full snowlands, you'd have like a mix, and I'm kind of into that. The idea of like, this is the Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad, here are the forests as they were, and then here are the snow forests, but it's not like a full, like, okay, winter has taken over, it is just winter. Like, no, winter's actually living with non-winter. I'm overthinking this. I like the card. It's a bit of a hoop to jump through to make it function, and I think that's probably okay. Like, yeah, have some hoops, jump through them. Is it good, though? If it didn't specify what you had to pay for X, which in this case is the number of snowlands you control, would it be good? I think it would be good. It's 2 for a 3/3, 3 for a 3/3 that gives your board +1/+1 until end of turn. Yeah. And then etc., etc., etc. from there. You can also just... I guess the thing is that it's not just... You must pay the X, even if you do not care about the buff, because the X is defined in the body, right? I like this card. I don't think I read the flavor text, though. You're born to fight, to strike the final blow, to stop this darkening of the world. You will succeed, and all shall be saved. Nyx, heir to winter. Ooh, cool. Are they saying that to Threnody, or is that just like kind of about Threnody? I'm into it. I think that's fun. The cowl. Right, this is our other avatar, the vampire avatar. So, the cowl, I remember this one. There's a card that just mentions, like, the cowl should not be opposed or something. And in our gameplay video, B and I discussed whether the cowl is a creature, or if the cowl is, like, a faction. And now that I think about it, you could definitely have, like, a faction that is a creature, right? You see that all the time, like, grizzly bears is multiple bears, blah, blah, blah. That's not a great example, but it's the first one I thought of. So that you could do that. But either way, or like the Urza Council, I think, is a creature, right? That's a much better example. So even if they are a faction, that works. But I like the idea of the cowl as this, like, avatar of vampirism. Like, they're more than just a vampire. Because I wanted this, like, vampire lord feeling to it, where it wasn't just one of the vampires in Innistrad, because there's a whole bunch of them, obviously. This is the avatar of vampires. For Black, black is a 5/4 vampire avatar. They have flying, okay. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice the Cowl of Enchantment. It's the Cowl of Enchantment. Unless you sacrifice another creature. So, this is a 6 mana 5/4 with flying. With a downside. It's not great. You could maybe turn that downside into an upside if you care about sacrificing, but sacrificing, like, at the beginning of each of your end steps is a bit limiting. It's not really when you want to be sacrificing things. From its tomb, the darkness gushes forth. To take its throne is to bind the night and burn it. Geist Rager. Ooh, cool. Geist Rager sounds like oh, some soldier said that. Some Geist Rager said that. That's like a normal creature. So I'm gonna take a second shot at this one. I feel like it's missing. I mean, it's just not very good anyway. But obviously, I don't want to be too harsh on like a power level thing, and it's not like a broken card. But well, we're gonna roll that one again. The Cowl. Hi! Wow! Look at you! I didn't see that coming. And the Cowl. They're for 4 black, they're a 6/5 flying vampire avatar. Okay, that's a bit better. They're a 6 mana 6/5 flyer instead of a 5/4 flyer. 1/1 really makes all the difference. When the Cowl enters the battlefield, each player chooses a non-land permanent they control, then sacrifices a creature with the chosen name. What? Wait. I assume you mean like the name of the chosen creature? But like, that's not what it says? The chosen is the vessel, and she will bear her new master without fear. I don't understand this. I like the idea of ETB, everyone sacrifices a non-land permanent. Choose a non-land permanent they control, sacrifices a creature with the chosen name. I'm trying to think if there's any way of like that being, assuming it just means with like the same name as the chosen creature. Is there any way to make that relevant? Weird. Weird. I'm gonna try it again. That one I don't think functions. Functionality is the most important thing. The Cowl. 4 black for a 4/4 vampire avatar. Whenever the Cowl or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token with flying. Very cool. I think it goes infinite though, right? When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token with flying, which of course would be entering the battlefield. Yeah, so this just goes infinite. If it said a non-token creature enters the battlefield, this would be fine, but it does not. Otherwise, I think it would be a pretty simple card. It's not super strong. Like, for 6 mana, you get a 4/4, and then you get an extra 1/1. I don't think that's unplayable, but it's not super interesting for your legendary commander. But it is appropriate flavorfully, right? Because I imagine the Cowl being this, like, you know, vampire avatar that probably, you know, rallies vampires or maybe creates vampires. But why would you seek the safety of a lifeless husk? The city will open its maw, and we will all be devoured. Ilum, the Unhallowed. Ooh, that's a new name. I like that one. Although if I reroll this card, I feel like it's not really appropriate to reference lore that's not, like, canon, quote-unquote. The Cowl is a 6 mana black, 4/4 vampire avatar. They have flying, and black, the Cowl gets +1/+1 as long as you control a vampire. So they're a vampire. This basically means black add a 1/1 counter to the cowl, but it doesn't interact with counters. And if it like stopped being a vampire, I guess that would go away. But yeah, it's a floating buff. I would say, generally speaking, right, it is something that says get +1/+1. And it doesn't just like forget to mention until end of turn. It does tell you how long that buff lasts for. It's just absurd, right? I mean, if this card read, the cowl gets +1/+1, period, maybe even reminder text, I'm not sure, this effect lasts indefinitely, I wouldn't be like, the AI is broken. I'd be like, oh, no, that was the intent, and yeah, that functions. It's just not something you see in Magic. I'm not sure how I feel about this. It's probably, like, not even that broken. Like, it is very strong, obviously. But, you know, dies to removal. One by one, the birds and beasts are rising. As soon... Oh, and soon, it will be my turn. Ooh, interesting. I'm going to leave you for now. Maybe we'll get you again on the next pass, if we can do a second pass. We'll see how much time we have. Riel New Vindictive. For 3 and black is a 3/4 vampire wizard. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. A classic effect. It is interesting. Once again, is this per point that you gain? Is this per instance of gaining life? I'm not sure. But no, it's just that's a vampire effect. Obviously, there's situations where it goes infinite. We know this, but as its own card, it functions. I think it's probably fine. Don't listen to her words. Do as she says, and her death will be swift and merciful. Nicol Bola said that, so that's fun. I don't know what's up with that, but yeah. Harson the Bold. 3 mana, 4/3, Orc Pirate with Menace. Okay, cool. When Harson the Bold enters the battlefield, you may search your library and or graveyard for a pirate card and or a mountain card. Put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Cool. Huh. That's awesome. That's so good. Do you really think we're finished? That card's great. I have no notes. That's just a cool card. It's just a cool card. It's probably too strong. Yeah. I love a card that's probably too strong. Elspeth Warrior Princess. Yes. Elspeth was on the flavor text of one of the cards, and they were actually called Elspeth Warrior Princess of Innistrad, but of course that did not fit. So here we have Elspeth Warrior Princess, generic white for a broken Planeswalker card. You can see it has no loyalty, so not gonna function, but we'll read it anyway. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you roll Planeshift, I think, maybe Chaos, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain indestructible until end of turn. Okay. Not really a Planeswalker, but that's okay. Some among us are worthy, and it's our duty to uphold the honor of the high throne. Okay. Let's give that one another shot. Okay, also broken. I'm going to select this so I can see what it says. Elspeth Warrior Princess is a 3-mana white legendary Planeswalker Elspeth. At the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, that player chooses up to 1 target creature and or Planeswalker they control. Until end of turn, whenever that player or that creature attacks, they may pay 1. If they do, you draw a card, and you choose a creature card in your hand. The chosen creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn. You lose the game if you discard your hand. The bell tolls for 100 virgins, but only a handful of heretics will hear it. Okay. Just give me anything with a loyalty ability. I meant and loyalty, but okay. Elspeth Warrior Princess is a 3-mana Elspeth Legendary Planeswalker. For +1, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. If you control no creatures, draw a card. Huh, that's actually kind of a cool ability, right? Get a bunch of life. Or if you have no creatures, draw a card. If you gain 0, draw a card. If you fail, I shall not abandon you. Cool, unfortunately, no loyalty. Sometimes Planeswalkers are a bit buggy in Urza's AI. It seems like from day to day, they end up like either working or not working. And I don't really know. That might just be coincidence or superstition, but yeah, it's weird. I think we're going to have to start just like rolling this and not reading every card and just like waiting until we get a Planeswalker that functions. But I will read this one. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, create a 2/2 white soldier creature token with lifelink. For 3 mana, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Cool card. I thought it was my destiny to serve you. Instead, you have honored me. Alright, so from here on, we are rolling immediately if there's no loyalty. Yeah, I heard me. Like, oh, alright, you don't want to play anymore. Fine. Elspeth Warrior Princess. Generic white for a 4 loyalty Elspeth. For +1, put a loyalty counter on each creature you control. I mean, okay. For -3, create a 3/3 black demon creature token with flying. Cool. Rad. Okay. So you know what's really cool about this card? Is it actually combos with, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but the sword she gets in New Capenna. Right? That turns a Planeswalker into a creature if they have it equipped. Right? Like, actually it functions? That's so weird. Yeah, I mean, okay. I'm not gonna keep rolling this. This card's giving me a lot of trouble, but... Oh, that's funny. Her victory is often marked by blood, broken limbs, and bone. Cool. Udara, Cloud of Shadows Librarian. We made it back to the top again. So that is our first full cycle through the cards. Skarzen in the chat says, I remember some creatures Urza's created with loyalty abilities. That's a really good point. Like for an AI set, yeah, sure. Put loyalty counters on your creatures. Sometimes they have loyalty abilities. Who's to say? It might happen. That's a really fair point. All right. I feel like I'm ready to just run this again. As much as I kind of want to respect the cards that we've seen as being like, this is the version of these cards. I think for this model, like for the advanced forging model, there is space to just make another version and see what it is. So yeah, let's run it through at least one more time. Udara, Cloud of Shadows Librarian. For blue is a 1/1 Goblin Witch. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card. Sweet. Her goblins, like their master, find work where others won't, including the dig sites and fields where crops refuse to grow. I think I like this one better than the other one. They both draw you cards, but this one draws a card when something that is not a token dies, whereas the other one draws you a card whenever you feel like paying a single blue mana. I don't know. I'm into it. Sayla Death Witch. Black and green for a 2/2 Goblin Witch. Don't look so much like a goblin, but they still look very much like a witch. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Sayla Death Witch of Shaz, deals 2 damage to that player. That's kind of a cool card. Just a 2-mana 2/2 that pings you for a 2 whenever you take a turn. And it is, you know, it's each opponent's upkeep. It makes sense in Commander. Yeah, it functions. Weird. Weird card. I like it, but weird. It does say Sayla Death Witch of Shaz, but oh well. I'm okay with that. I don't think that would function in a real Magic card, but we do have precedent for the body text that refers to this card as being slightly different than the actual name. Usually, I think always, this is shortening the name. So if this had said, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Sayla deals 2 damage to that player, then that would function. That would be within the precedent of Magic. Whereas adding words is not within the precedent of Magic. But Death Witch of Shaz is a cool name, and I like the idea that the AI is like giving us a little bit extra lore concept here. Some feasts taste sweet, and some aren't. Talisera Uraga Queen. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know who that is. Huln Necropolis Seer. So last time this was like a spirit necromancer, or at least in the flavor referred to them as necromancer. I don't think they had any necromantic abilities. 3 mana, black and blue spirit wizard. They're a 2/2. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may pay 2 generic. If you do, Huln deals 2 damage to any target. Ooh, interesting. Huh. Any target is quite powerful. The nymphs of Huln whisper secrets to her on the wind. I'm into it. I'm into it. I'm into it. I'm into it. Kiranasali. Or Kiransali. Kiran. 4 mana, green and white, 2/2 insect druid. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 green insect creature tokens with flying. So that's 4 mana for 6/6 worth of power. 4/4 Witch of his flying. Already pretty good. For 2 green and white, so the same cost as their actual mana cost, target insect creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I love this card. This card is excellent. Ooh, I love it. It's pretty expensive for a buff, but like, you know what? If you only need that little extra damage, cool. It's flavorful. There's the insect druid, like, yeah, I love it. Spoil their food, rot their homes, thrive. Kiranasali, inscribed in a Mausoleum wall. I love this character. She's so cool. Every card with her is just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm into this insect druid. Let's go. Insect druid. Insect druid. Nasa, Peddler of Bones. 2 white, black for a 3/2 Goblin Rogue. When Nasa, Peddler of Bones, enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. Ooh. I'm going to sell a card for what? What do I get for it? If you do, draw a card. Fair enough. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may have Nasa deal 1 damage to that player. Interesting. I like this design. Obviously, you discarding and drawing a card doesn't activate activate Nasa in any way that's relevant, but flavorfully wise, it's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm peddling, I'm discarding this, I'm drawing this, but also when your opponent discards things. Also, the other version of Nasa, the first draft, forces your opponent to discard. Not that you can play both of them because they're the same card, but cool, I'm into it. Who knows where the body parts go when the sun sets? Let me know if I can help. Hey, I don't know where the body parts went. I don't know. Let me know if I can help, though, you know. I might be able to find them. You need some body parts? Nasa's good. Nasa's good. Yorick, Wizard of Amica. 2 blue, red for a 2/3 human wizard. Whenever a wizard you control attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. Okay, cool. For 2 blue, red, again, same cost as actually playing them, and tapping, you may tap any number of target creature defending player controls. Activate only if Yorick, Wizard of Amica was attacked this turn. Well, that's where the card breaks, huh? So, first thing, you have no defending player unless you're attacking, right? So, I think you'd have to, like, move to attack and then activate this at instant speed, which I think functions, but I could be wrong. But you certainly can't... The Wizard of Amica is not attacked. Like, that never happens, and it certainly wouldn't happen on your turn. Yeah. Otherwise, I think this card's actually pretty cool, right? The idea of, like, what's our wizard payoff for Wizard Matters deck? Well, it's that all of our wizards are going to attack and just tap out your board. That's kind of cool. Yorick built his reputation as a mage, not as a thief. What, was he a thief? Was he a thief, though? Yorick, Wizard of Amica, 2 blue and red for a 3/3 human wizard. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, create X 1/1 black insect creature tokens, interesting, with flying, cool. X is the amount of life you gained this turn. Cool. That's really clean. It feels weird in blue-red. Like, blue-red are just not life gain colors. I like the effect. The effect is cool. Like, I kind of want this effect on Kiara, honestly. I think that would be really fun. If you use the field, send your adversary into the throes of fire. Pharaoh Yuya. What? Pharaoh Yuya? Alright. Sure. Weird card, but it functions. And it's cool. Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pup. Ooh, I'm excited to see a second take on her. Because we didn't roll her a second time. We just used the original draft, and it was okay. I want to see more. 3 and black for a 2/3 Spider Witch. Whenever a player casts a black spell, if you control a planes, you may draw a card. Okay. So again, if you're playing Commander, you're not going to control planes. But she could go in the 99 because she's only a monocolored card anyway. It's pretty reasonable. Whenever a player casts a black spell, if you control a planes, you may draw a card. That's very weirdly specific. As Pia, she sows chaos on a grand scale. As Jovian, she sweeps it under the rug. Excuse me? What? Who's Jovian? Alright, I mean, I want to see another take on... You know, I'm just going to roll. I want to see another take. I think Pia's really cool, and I want to see more options for her. Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pub, is a 4-mana black Spider Witch. They're a 3/4. That's not a Spider Witch. Okay, whatever. Don't criticize the art. It's fine. the art can always be changed, and usually it's just a mess of lines that don't mean anything, and I'm not mad about that. So, when Pia, Witch of the Falling Leaf Pub, enters the battlefield, if a player controls more creatures than you, each other player sacrifices a creature. Okay, again, I'm not sure if other refers to other than you or other than a creep thing. But I think that's what it means, right? I think it means other than you. Because it's not like, you know, target player who controls more creatures than you, each other player sacrifices a creature, right? It's not choose a player that controls more creatures than you. So I think it's like, as long as anyone has more creatures than you do, everyone, except for you, has to sacrifice a creature. And that's actually really cool. That's a really powerful effect. I like it a lot. But it also has this limiter on it in that, like, you never get to destroy the best creature your opponent has, because I guess if one player had one creature and another player had two creatures and you only had Pia, then the person with one creature is still going to have to sacrifice it. So it's got some targeted stuff in a commander game. I like this card a lot. I think this is probably the best version of Pia we've seen. Although I've actually forgotten what Pia looked like the first time. The first time Pia had target creature with power 3 or less. Oh yeah, they couldn't be blocked. They were unblockable, and they could grant that ability to a different creature with power 3 or less if they tapped. Cool. I like this one a lot, though. This one's really cool. I'm not usually a big fan of, like, ETB commanders, and honestly, you probably wouldn't play them as a commander anyway, but yeah, as a card, it's cool. It's a cool card. Pia lived her life as a trader and a matchmaker, but eventually she chose to move away from the public eye. Huh. Okay, if you say so. I believe you. Yeah. Mayavi Dusk Priest is a black and green 5-mana 2/4 elf shaman. When Mayavi Dusk Priestess, okay, so it's editorialized the name, but we've accepted that in the past, so let's keep going. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an instant card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Any instant? Tutor for any instant's actually pretty cool. Weird as a black-green thing, but okay. And tap, add 1 mana of any color. For 4 mana? Yeah, I like it. I think it's a cool card. The only note I have is that it says Dusk Priestess instead of Dusk Priest, but that's it. Her orders are to follow, but her morals are not. Interesting. Something going on in the Dusk Church. Cythria Goblin Smith. Ah, yes, Cythria. I liked Cythria last time. They were very cool. 3 red, white for a 2/3 Goblin Artificer. As Cythria Goblin Smith enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. Okay, so 5 mana for 3/4 worth of stats. For generic and red, sacrifice Cythria. It deals 2 damage to target creature. I don't like this. I think this is bad. Now, we will test our abilities. It's not unfunctional, but I think I will reroll this. I think we can do better. That did not impress me. If it was like sacrifice a goblin, like that could be kind of interesting. Like they make a goblin, but also flavorfully, that doesn't really feel like that's appropriate. Then again, I mean, goblins are largely defined. Goblin professions are largely defined by somebody dying in the process of trying to do something. So it wouldn't be that out of line, even though it's not really something we saw in this set. Cythria Goblin Smith, 3 red and white, is a star Goblin Artificer. Cythria Goblin Smith's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts you control. I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah. For 5 mana, that's maybe too much, but I could see this in a red-white, like, Equipment Matters deck. Yeah, totally. The Mechanos have replaced all their arms with automata. What? Who are the Mikados? Wait. I think Cytheria came from a different set. Is Cytheria a Planeswalker? What? There are no Mikados in the Pumpkinfolk Witches of Innistrad. That's not a thing. Alright, I'm gonna leave you there for now, but that's really funny. I never know how, like, expensive a Star like that should be. Because, like, the ceiling's really high, but the floor is also... Well, it's 0, right? It's not even 1 in this case. Sigilled Burr, Forest Champion. 3 green, white for a 3/4 Treefolk Warrior. They have tap, add green and white. Spend this mana only to cast legendary spells with green and white. I mean, so cast this only to cast legendary spells, but they have to have green and white, presumably in their costs, so you couldn't say something like, oh, I want to cast this green spell, and then have the white go towards the generic. But you could say, you couldn't even say, I want to spend the green from this on a green spell, and the white from this on a white spell. Like, even if you're only spending one of the 2 mana, it has... The spell you're targeting has to have both green and white. With is a weird way of saying that. Things aren't with green-white, but it'd be within the mana cost. I don't know. Either way, this is just not interesting enough. The birds always fly south, but we will go on, and we will win. Huh. Okay. I like the first Sigilled better. The first Sigilled was cool. Sigilled Burr, Forest Champion. 3 green, white. Is a Treefolk Warrior. They're a 3/3 with partner... Wait, what? Just in case we're missing something, I'm going to copy this. Partner with 2 and green. Reminder text. Send a creature you control and a creature you control of an opponent's choice into the battlefield with 2 and green. So, send a creature isn't a thing. That's a very funny way of saying that, to send a creature into the battlefield. Also, it's a creature you control, meaning it's already on the battlefield. For 2 white and green creatures you control gain Forest Walk until end of turn. They can't be blocked as lies if any player controls a forest. That's true. We follow the ancient way of walking through the trees. No weapons, no war, no sacrifice. Not yet. Well, cool, but also unfunctional. Try again. 3 green, white is a 4/4... For a 4/4 Treefolk Warrior. That's... The AI made, like, the prototype for a, like, 3D printed miniature? Okay. That's what it looks like. At the beginning of your end step, create a 3/3 green Treefolk creature... Treefolk Warrior creature token. 5 mana for a 4/4 that at the end of the turn, if it survives till end step, you get a 3/3. That's cool. And then it repeats. Yeah? It's kind of cool that it's like, it happens immediately and that it happens at the end of turn, but it doesn't happen immediately in that you could actually instant speed remove it before it has a chance. In a way that if it was an ETB, you'd just have the 3/3 sitting around. The land isn't as peaceful as it appears. This is a cool one. Interesting art, too. Like, I could definitely see myself, like, using this as a ref sheet to design Sigilled Burr Forest Champion. But this makes me think of, like... This doesn't make me think of, like, Treefolk Warrior Forest Champion. This makes me think of, like... I don't know, like a character in a MOBA or something. Like, and they're also, like, fast and low to the ground, like they're a rogue or something. I don't know. They're cool, though. I'm into their design. Wicked Jark Giant Rampager is a 5-mana 4/4 vanilla. Alright. Sure. Sure you are. Whatever. Let's try that again. I'll read the flavor text. When the Skob tamed the Kraken, she took a taste for men who loved the sea. Okay, weird. Wicked Jark Giant Rampager. I think I've said that differently every time. 5 mana, black and red, 4/3 giant warrior with flying and trample. Sweet. Whenever Wicked Jark attacks, choose target creature blocking Wicked Jark this turn. What? If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, that creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. What? I mean, this is just like a 5-mana 4/3 with flying and trample, which isn't terrible. When it attacks, choose a creature blocking Wicked Jark, which is nobody, because on attack, that hasn't happened yet. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, that creature gets +2/+2. So what it's basically saying, if this functioned as intended, like if this was worded differently and functions the way it was supposed to, it would basically be like, every time you attack, you have to choose one of the blockers. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which Wicked Jark has power 4 or greater, so you do. The creature you chose gets +2/+2. And obviously you wouldn't want to do this, but it's a forced effect. It's not a May ability. So it's just a downside that they come with when they're already interesting. Giant steps towards destruction are no longer his goal. I only wish I had his drive to create. Aw. Okay. Cool. Sure. Wicked Jark Giant Rampager, 3 black and red for a 5/4 giant warrior with haste. Okay. Whenever Wicked Jark Giant Rampager attacks, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. That card's rad. That's great. It's excellent. 100 years ago, its cries warned of a wickedly sweet death. I don't know what that means, but also, one of the reasons I love the giants in this set so much is just because they all look like this. These like big, like terrifying pumpkin giants. I love them. They all look really cool. Threnody, Queen of Winter. Ah, we're back. X green. Ooh, that's a cool design. For a 5/5, so 2 mana 5/5 if you don't want to pay X. It partners with Sylvia, which is a cost, according to the colon that follows. Put X, okay, +1/+1 counters on Threnody, Queen of Winter, and its triggered abilities that player controls and creatures they control each combat. Maybe we shouldn't have done a second pass. This is getting weird. From whence we came, however, I will hear it fall. Fen Frostheart, Ruins of Trotsky. Well, that sounds cool. Unfortunately, this card's just getting rerolled. Like, there's no debating that. It's just happening. Threnody, Queen of Winter, X green. I'm gonna just select this to make sure that we can actually get a text for that. Partner with Threnody, Queen of Winter. Okay. It has a reminder text, though, so maybe it means something differently in this set. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put X 1/1 counters on another target creature they control, where X is the number of times this creature has dealt damage this turn. You have no maximum hand size. Creatures you control have hexproof. I mean, it's a busted card in that it's a 2-mana 4/4 that gives all of your creatures hexproof and you have no maximum hand size. But it doesn't function. Her grief shatters at every wound as the rime crystals grow with her every step. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. No, we got it last time. We got it last time. It was good last time. One more time. X green 2/4 Treefolk Avatar. Tap, prevent the next X damage that will be dealt to target creature this turn. Create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. So, let's talk about this card. This card I want to talk about. For 2 mana, you have a 2/4. The way that this card probably should be worded is like, Threatened Queen of Winter enters with X frost counters on her. And then has tap, prevent damage equal to the number of frost counters on Friendly Queen of Winter, right? Like, you do something like that. Here it's just saying, do you remember what X was when you cast it, right? It's basically saying, note what X is on cast, and then tap to prevent X damage. I think that's a perfectly reasonable effect. It's just not worded correctly here. Other than that, though, cool, right? 2 mana 2/4 that says, you know, tap, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. That's already pretty good. But for 3 mana, it prevents 1 damage and creates a 1/1. Cool. I will sit and mourn in your face. Winter will leave, and then I will run to face her. One day, I will take your face and mourn in your heart. I don't know why that got to me. That just tickled me right there. The Cowl. A 6 mana black 4/4 vampire avatar with flying. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. She does not fight to the death, but to win. Okay. Okay. Creature you control deals combat damage to a player. You get to do the rummage and or loot. I don't know which one's which. I'm never going to learn it. Cool. If you want to dig for something, that's a pretty good way of doing it. You're not going to mill yourself out if you're playing Commander. Yeah, no, I'm into it. I mean, you could, but like you're unlikely to. For 6 mana as a 4/4 flyer, is that enough of an upside? I'm not sure, but maybe you could make like a cycling, not like a cycling, but like a self-discard deck around this, like a Madness deck or something. I like it. I think that's pretty good. Riel New Vindictive, 3 and black for a 2/4 vampire wizard. When Riel New Vindictive enters the battlefield, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, draw a card. So, ETB draw a card, I guess, but you're allowed to discard as many as you want. That's like less bad than, like, that's actually kind of reasonable in that sometimes discarding is an upside in certain decks. So just being like, you may discard cards is kind of cool. Like having a discard outlet, that's real, right? In certain decks. In the same way that sack outlets are a thing. It's weird that it says if you do, though. Because I'm not sure if you... Does that mean you have to have a minimum of 1 card for it to count? Or does that mean you could either decide, I am going to discard any number of cards. That number is 0, and then you draw a card. Or does... But you could also say, I will choose to discard no cards. I feel like this really is like, when Riel New Vindictive enters the battlefield, you may discard any number of cards, and you may draw a card, right? But, yeah, alright. My desire for vengeance and my own advancement in magic have become inextricably... I said that right, I think. Inextricably intertwined. Is it not justifiable? Thomist Chancellor Zeth Lomax. What? Okay, cool. Harson the Bold. 3 mana, 2/2 Orc Pirate. They're red, they have menace. For red, target attacking creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Wow! Okay. So, not only can they fire breathe for someone else, they can do fire breathing ×2. I mean, that's just really good. That's just really good right there. They have some menace to give themselves a little bit of evasion. Yeah, that's great. And then like commander, you can be like, hey, I'm gonna fire breathe for your creature. It doesn't have to be a creature you control. Like, yeah. And the attacking thing isn't even really... It's a bit of a drawback in that you can't block with it, right? You can't be like, don't attack me. I'll buff my attack with my fire-breathing dragon, so don't attack me. You'll die. I'm going to trade with you, right? So I guess that's a slight downside that maybe balances it a bit, but it's still very good. Harson was born from an acorn, as surely as any from an oak tree. Wait, what? AI, did you think it said oak pirate? It's the oak pirate! Yar! Now I want to see tree folk pirates. Give us tree folk pirates, wizards! That sounds awesome. Elspeth, warrior, princess. Generic, white, 4. No loyalty. When Elspeth, warrior, princess of Innistrad. Whoa! That's her name! That's what her name was in the flavor text! It was warrior, princess of Innistrad! This is like... It's not actually precedent. It's not actually precedent, obviously, but it is... It's so in keeping with the, like... We had that Death Witch that was like, oh, Death Witch of Shaw's, and we're like, she's not actually Death Witch of Shaw's, but we'll allow it. And now it's come full circle, and then it's like, oh yeah, Elspeth Warrior Princess is her name because I had to shorten it from Warrior Princess of Innistrad. And it's like, it's saying, oh yeah. Like, I don't think that's a thing in Magic, but the idea of being like, this person has a longer name, but the actual, like, card name is shorter than their actual name. It's like if they made Azmarana Marika Dyson to Kuldakar, and they were like, we want to do another one of this card. She's cool, we like her, but I mean, her name is Azmarana Marika Dyson to Kuldakar. It already fills the entire text box. What do? Well, we'll make one with her nickname. We'll have it be Asmore, comma, and then it will be a thing. It'll have a name, and it's like. And then maybe the actual, like, body text says when Azmarana Marika Dyson to Kuldakar, the demon chef, like, the idea of being able to play with that space, that's interesting. What does it do? I mean, it doesn't have loyalty, but what does it do? When Elspeth, warrior princess of Innistrad, enters the battlefield, search your library for an enchantment card and reveal it. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it in your hand. That's actually a really cool effect. Like, it's like, what are you talking about? I didn't find a creature card, I found an enchantment card, but enchantment creatures exist. Enchantment creatures even were in the most recent set that had Elspeth, right? They were in New Capenna. Not New Capenna. Sorry, they were in Kamigawa. She wasn't in Kamigawa. My mistake. I was thinking of Kamigawa. Still, cool effect. I like it. Tutors an enchantment, but also puts it directly in the battlefield if it's an enchantment creature. That's a fun effect. Her skills and leadership complement one another, serving to highlight the glory of Innistrad. So you know what this is, right? This is just a 3-mana sorcery. right? Because you cast it for 3, it enters the battlefield, it gets its ETB, and then it dies because it has no loyalty. Do you think there is a function for that, right? Like, is there a use case in which being a planeswalker that dies immediately and has an ETB has value over being a sorcery? There's a few reasons. One would be, like, it's not going to give you, like, when a creature enters the battlefield. I don't think there's any when a planeswalker enters the battlefield effects, but cool. I kind of like the idea of planeswalkers with this effect. Like, I think you could actually play with this in Magic. Like, in official Magic could definitely use the idea of saying, hey, we want to have legendary non-creature spells again, right? We used to do this thing where we said legendary sorcery, and the thing was you had to control a legendary creature who was, like, casting the legendary sorcery, and it felt weird. And I want, like, legendary, like, sorceries. I think those would be fun to have. And what's the use case? Well, it doesn't matter about the whole, like, you can only control one thing rule because you don't control them for more than their single use case. But there's other cards that are, like, when you cast a legendary spell, for example. So the idea of, like, being able to satisfy the, like, this is a legendary spell, give it the respect it deserves. It is Elspeth shows up, does something, and leaves. Like, that's kind of cool. I kind of like the idea of doing that. And having it be a planeswalker is a little bit awkward, but I think it's a cool idea. I think Wizards could do this. It would feel weird, but I think it functions. Anyway. Her skills and leadership complement one another, serving to highlight the glory of Innistrad. I'm not gonna re-roll this one. I think this one actually functions. You know what? I'll re-roll it. I'll get an actual one with loyalty. But the fact that it doesn't even have, like, loyalty abilities or anything, like, the only thing it does is ETB, and for 3 mana, like, that is a perfectly reasonable effect. Like, I think that functions. I think that's cool. I think that's rad. I love the idea of planeswalkers with 0 loyalty that have no loyalty abilities, and maybe some of them even have flash, and they're just, like, another kind of, like, spell with a planeswalker subtype that anyway. Weird and cool, and I like it. Let's see another version, though. 3 mana creatures you control have double strike. Again, so this case doesn't function. Let's actually go through this, like, why the other one worked and this one doesn't. The other one's an ETB, it does something when it enters the battlefield, and then it goes away. That's just what spells do anyway, basically. Or, like, sorceries in instance. Here, it's like, while this is on the battlefield, creatures you control have double strike, but it won't be on the battlefield because it's going to die immediately, unless you had some way of, like, planeswalkers enter the battlefield with an extra loyalty counter. In which case, that would function, but that's sort of a fringe thing that we're not really discussing right now. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. Cool. This is like, this would be cool as an enchantment, right? Like, this would be a very cool enchantment. It's definitely undercosted for an enchantment, but cool. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you draw a card. Your creatures have double strike. Great. Yeah. I guess you could also, now that I'm thinking about enchantments, you could do enchantments that way. You could have, like, a legendary enchantment that ETBs and then goes away. That would probably make, like, more sense. But, like, enchantment fall decks are a thing, right? Like, constellation triggers going off and stuff. Maybe that would be a bit. If they... Yeah, I'm into the Planeswalker thing. Wizards do this. The sun's but a whetstone on her blade. There is a glory that lingers beyond the brawl, and you can see it reflected in her eyes. Arneson of blasphemous intent. Alright, cool. Let's get one with loyalty counters. First strike, haze, beginning of upkeep, create a 3/3 white knight creature token. For 4 mana, target creature you control gains indestructible until no turn. Elspeth left as a reminder that peace will not reign forever. Cool. Like, we're certainly seeing a bit of a story here. Like they left. Okay. They're the warrior princes of Innistrad, but they left afterwards, I guess. I don't know. Okay, we did it. 5. Everything, the text is cut off, but that's okay. We have loyalty. What do we have here? Elspeth Warrior Princess. Generic white for a 5 loyalty Elspeth. +1, untap target creature and gain control of it until end of turn. Cool. It doesn't gain haste, but you get control of it. That's fun. -2, create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. Okay. And -7, destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller gains control of that permanent until end of turn. This would be fine if it didn't have that last line of its controller gains control of that permanent. Whatever. It's a harmless line that doesn't break anything. It's just whatever. You gotta enjoy the occasional the AI just being quirky, I guess. I always want these to be so good. I think that brings us to the end though. So let's see what it says. Ours is the path of steel and spear. Join us and take up your battle axe. Elspeth. And with that, we're at the end of another episode of Advanced Forging. All of these cards made today, including all of the botched ones, are going to be available as images in a Google Drive folder. You can find the link in the description of this video. I'm also going to include, I guess we'll see what I do. Future me, do something cool. But point is that I do want to highlight the sort of like quote-unquote like canon versions of these cards. So I'm going to choose my favorites of all these in case people care what those favorites happen to be. But that is something I do want to do. I'll have those marked some way. Maybe it'll just be a subfolder. I don't know. Whatever. I'll catch you next time. I'm DarcyBits. I do this at least twice a week these days. You can find them all on my YouTube. Please check out some past episodes and tell me that, you're enjoying them if you're enjoying them. Tell me what I could do better if you think I could do things better. I want to keep making these as long as people want to keep watching. So, until next time, I've been DarcyBits. I'll see you later.